Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today we're going to be doing an individual review for The Rise of Kyoshi by FCE. This is also with Avatar co-creator Michael Dante DiMartino. If you guys don't know, this is set in the same world as the Avatar The Last Airbender series, which aired on Nickelodeon and just recently got put back up on Netflix, at least in the United States. So if you have not watched the cartoon, I highly suggest that you go and do that because it's available and it's one of the best cartoon series of all time. It's one of those cartoons that people of all ages will enjoy it. Younger people will enjoy it because it's really fun, it's really adventurous, but older people will pick up on a lot of things that maybe younger people won't. So it's one of those cool things that at various ages you'll start picking up on different things. So good. If you guys don't know, there are four main groups of people in this world. There are the northern and southern water tribes, there are the air nomads, there is the Earth Kingdom, and then there is the Fire Nation. Each group of people is known for the type of benders that they produce. Waterbenders are able to control water. That includes some amounts of healing magic. Airbenders are able to control the air. Firebenders control fire. Earthbenders control the earth. People have various degrees of abilities with these different elements. There are stronger benders, there are weaker benders. There's one person in the world that can control all four elements, and that's the Avatar. The Avatar gets reborn over and over and over again in different tribes in order. It goes earth, fire, air, water, and each time an Avatar dies, they're reborn into the next group of people. This book follows Avatar Kyoshi, which was two before Avatar Aang. So she's born into the Earth Kingdom group, but she doesn't know that she's the Avatar for a very long time. At the beginning of the book, you find out that she's an orphan in Yokoya Port, which is a small town that's pretty distant from any of the major cities in the Earth Kingdom. The villagers in this town have not been taking the greatest care of her. She, very early on in the novel, gets hired as a servant slash maid to this very wealthy earthbender sage. Jiangsu was a friend of the previous Avatar, and his life mission is to find the next Avatar and make sure that he does a better job of helping the new Avatar than he did helping his friend that was the previous Avatar who died very young. So he thinks that he found the next Avatar, which is a very powerful earthbender named Yun, and Yun and Kyoshi are friends at the beginning of the novel. They're also friends with a firebender named Ranji. I don't know if I'm saying these names correctly, so kindly correct me in the comments if I'm saying them incorrectly. Ranji is the daughter of another one of the previous Avatar's friends, who's called Heiron? Don't know how to pronounce her name at all. And the other guy who was friends with the previous Avatar, who's now trying to help train Yun as the new Avatar, is an airbender named Kelsang. When Avatar Yun, who's not really the Avatar, asks Kyoshi to come with him to make this deal with the Fifth Nation, which is a group of pirates, something goes wrong in the deal and it's revealed that Kyoshi is a lot more powerful than people thought that she was, and then it just follows her as she has to flee the situation with Ranji, and then her own Avatar journey begins. As usual with my book reviews, I'm going to go through my pros, go through my cons, give you my rating, and be done. My first pro for this book is Kyoshi herself. I really liked following Kyoshi. She's such a different Avatar than the Avatars that we've followed in the past. When I was watching the original cartoon show, Kyoshi was always one of the Avatars that is talked about that I found the most interesting because she's had such a lasting impact on the world after her death. The Avatar The Last Airbender series takes place hundreds of years after Kyoshi died because Aang disappears for 100 years before the start of that show. A lot of time has passed, and even in that TV show, there is a group of people who devoutly follow the teachings of Kyoshi and upkeep where she lived and everything like that. She has an entire island that's called Kyoshi Island in the Avatar The Last Airbender TV show. So she's had such a big impact, and she's just really interesting, so I was really curious and excited when this book came out. She has a very different approach than the other Avatars that we followed. She's a lot more open to extreme violence, and she's not opposed to killing people, which is different than Aang was. She's also different than a lot of the Avatars because she doesn't realize that she's the Avatar until she's about 16, and so her journey starts a lot later than most Avatars' journeys do. Most Avatars are found out when they're very young children or babies, but she somehow escapes the notice of all of these powerful people. And because Kyoshi is such an iconic person in the Avatar universe, I really liked seeing her origins and seeing where things came from. I think that this book does a really good job of starting to explain how she is the way that she is, how she became the person that she became, how she became the Avatar that she was. Like, she has these fans and the headdress and the makeup and her wardrobe. Those are all things that are explained even in this first book, how they came to be and how important they are to her and why. So I was really loving all of this background information with Kyoshi and finding out who she is, all of that. Another interesting thing is that Kyoshi is bisexual, and she's pretty like in the middle bisexual. So she finds both men and women attractive, and in this book there's a bit of a female-female relationship that starts to unfold. And she just constantly goes against tradition. In the blurb, it tells you this, so it's not really a spoiler. She, after fleeing from the situation, she ends up falling in with a group of thieves. She's like a thief avatar, which is different, and I enjoyed that. And it was funny and fun to see Ranji try to keep Kyoshi following traditions and making sure that she does things the correct way, but Kyoshi constantly rejects that, which I liked. And the last thing that was kind of surrounding Kyoshi that I was really enjoying, besides just her as a character and seeing how she grows throughout this novel and seeing her backstory and seeing how she got all the things that she gets, is that I really liked how this book focuses on how important the people surrounding the Avatar are. Like Katara and Sokka and Toph and Zuko from the original Avatar series had such an influence on Aang. This book, it really explores that because the friends of the old Avatar are still around and are still young-ish. It was interesting to see how all of these friends of the Avatar felt like they had failed the previous Avatar and wanted to make it up to the next Avatar, but Kyoshi gets her own group of people that are the people that are going to be influencing her, and how the older people that had influenced the previous Avatar would feel about that. Like, it's such an important job in this world to advise the Avatar, and I just thought it was really interesting to see how Kyoshi is different than the other Avatars based off the people that she surrounds herself with. Like, if she had gone this path, she would have ended up a completely different Avatar, a completely different type of person than she is, because she has fallen in with this thief group and all of that. And so basically, I just really enjoyed following Kyoshi and learning about her and seeing the beginning of her origin story. My next and probably biggest pro for this book is how it interrelates with the world, and also the nods that it has to the original cartoon show and all of the other things that have happened. I forgot to say that there are also comics that happen in between Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra that explain things as well. And I think that this does a similarly good job of interweaving elements from the original source material that I was really enjoying picking up on. For instance, you find out where Kyoshi Island came from and how Kyoshi Island was like before it became Kyoshi Island. I already mentioned this, but you learn about her fans and you learn about her headdress and how she had gotten them from her parents. I think it says that in the blurb as well. Yes, it says it in the blurb. But you learn more about those things. You get to see her start to train with them and learn how to use them, which was so fun. Her makeup, her fighting style, all those things are covered even in this first book, so I'm just excited to learn even more in the sequel. I don't know how many there's going to be. You even start to learn about why she is the longest lived Avatar that there has been, and you start to learn why, which was so cool. Those are pretty big things about Kyoshi, but I also loved the small little throwbacks to the show. I just started rewatching the show, so I probably didn't pick up on everything that was included in here, but there were some pretty significant things from the show that were dribbled in. There's a Shirshu, I can't remember if I'm saying that correctly, which is that mold-like creature. I really loved seeing those. I also really love this one-liner that happens way later on in the book about the Ganji and the Zhang and how those two groups of people really don't like each other. That's like an entire episode in the first season where the two groups of people have to travel through the canyon together. It was so well woven into this that, I mean, if you didn't remember that episode of the canyon and the two groups of people and how one stole an orb and the other one was in prison for 20 years, you wouldn't pick up on it, but because I did, I loved that. And like the most iconic thing, at least in my mind right now as I'm talking about it, is the cabbage vendor that pops up all the time in the Avatar show and in the comics. There's a cabbage vendor in here as well. I just love that. I'm sure if I had finished my rewatch of the show, I would have picked up on more, like I said, but I was happy with what I got just jumping into this. Another pro for me is that this is a bit darker than the TV show and the other things that I've experienced so far. There's a lot more death, there's a lot more violence. In particular, there's one death that I was like, whoa. So it is a bit darker and it is more YA than it is a children's book. So just know that going in, but I really enjoyed it being a bit darker because Kyoshi is a bit older and there's a lot more people and figures in this world that are evil than just the Fire Nation, which is how it is in the TV show. There are multiple antagonists in here and she has to start going and dealing with them one at a time. And my last pro that I'm going to talk about is that I just really liked the side characters. I really liked Kelsang. I really liked Jiangzu's character. Didn't like him, but his character was well done. Heiran, the firebender, I liked her as well. She's not as present, but I still enjoyed her. Ranji, I obviously really enjoyed because her and Kyoshi are so close. Ranji is so dedicated to Kyoshi that I loved it. I forgot to mention that there's a flying bison in here called Peng Peng, I don't know. But I really enjoyed the flying bison inclusion and how Yip Yip is still the flying bison's command. And then I also really liked this second group of characters that we're introduced to when she joins this thief group. The specific group that she joins is the Flying Opera Company. I really enjoyed Lek, who's a young earthbender. I enjoyed Karima, who is a waterbender. Lao Gi, which is another earthbender, and Wong, who's also an earthbender. I really enjoyed them. And again, how I was talking about the people that surround the Avatar have a lot of influence. It was interesting to see how these people influence Kyoshi and her journey. I could just keep gushing about this book and talking about how it interacts with the other Avatar stories that we've experienced so far, but I think I'm just gonna cut it off there because I've been talking for a very long time and talking quickly. I only found a couple of cons. The first is that this has some dumping of character names and it does it twice. There are a lot of characters at the very beginning that you have to get a grasp on. There's Jiangzu, Yoon, Kyoshi, Rangi. There's a cook that I can't remember her name, but she pops in and out of the story. Heiran, I don't know, Heiran. And then there's the whole group of the Flying Opera Company that come in, and so there's just a lot of characters that are all introduced all at once, like twice. So it would have been easier to get into the story and just hit the ground running if the characters were introduced maybe a little bit more slowly, but it wasn't that big of a deal and it didn't really affect my reading experience all that much. The only other con that I had was that I felt like this book went on maybe a little bit too long or was dragged out a little bit. Most of the story is told in third person close with Kyoshi, but there is some perspective that's told third person close with Jiangzu, and I felt like Jiangzu's chapters would have been more interesting if they were told in the perspective of Heiran. I looked up that name and people have been pronouncing it both ways, so I'm just gonna say Heiran, and then if it's wrong, I'll correct it for when I read the sequel. She is a lot more conflicted about what's going on and what Jiangzu is doing, so it would have been nice to see her perspective, and she could have also told it in a lot more concise of a manner. Jiangzu's chapters are a little bit more slow going and a little bit more political. Like, he is really involved with the politics of the Earth Kingdom. He is very influential in that world. I didn't really care about that as much. I would have much rather see a more conflicted character than one that is so having a one-track mind. Like, Jiangzu is so determined for this one thing to happen. And I think that there was quite a bit of traveling in here, but I don't know. But a lot of that is like training montages, which is something that I enjoy seeing. I enjoy seeing the Avatar train in the different elements and try to get better in them. So I think that what it was Jiangzu's chapters slow down the plot, and I think that we could have gotten that information from a character who would tell it a lot quicker. Heiran is a lot more to the point than a lot of the other characters, and I think a lot of the conversations between Jiangzu and Heiran would be a lot quicker if she were the one that were telling them. Again, that is a very minor con and didn't really affect my reading experience all that much. I really enjoyed this read. I really enjoyed Kyoshi, and I'm sure she'll continue to grow throughout the books and throughout her story, so I am pumped for it, and I really enjoyed this first book. I gave it 4.5 stars. That rating could be biased because I love this world so much because I watched the show when I was a lot younger. I don't even know when it first started coming out, but that's when I started. I had the original like DVDs as they came out. But I thought this was really well written. I really enjoyed the characters and the story and everything. 4.5 stars. Definitely recommend it if you're a fan of Avatar. I do think that you benefit from watching the show first, but I don't think that it spoils anything for the show if you read this first. So you could hypothetically pick this up without having ever seen the show and follow the story completely, but all those small elements that are in here that I talked about before won't be picked up unless you've seen the show. Up to you. Definitely recommend though. So that's going to be my review on The Rise of Kyoshi by FCE. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you've read this novel yet. Have you watched the Avatar show and thus are excited to jump into this now that you know that it is so good? I've seen a couple of people not enjoy this as much as I did, but I really enjoyed it, so I hope that you guys will really enjoy it as well. Anything else you want me to know, leave it down below and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye. Vicky, you want to say bye? Say bye. That was weak. Say bye. Oh. He's not gonna do it. Bye.